So welcome to the recitation of the 5 mindfulness trainings. Tonight we have a number of our friends that are going to be helping with this practice. And I think you know how to mute and unmute your microphones. Down on my screen, it's the lower left-hand corner of the screen is the microphone image. And you can click on that when it is your turn to offer a reading, and that will unmute you as we go. And I'm going to share my screen this evening so that we can all see the texts of the mindfulness trainings. And I'm going to begin by just reading this first section. These trainings, of course, are the core of the Plum Village community of engaged Buddhism, and they're offered to us by Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh. And they start with the paragraph that says, "The 5 mindfulness trainings represent the Buddhist vision for a global spirituality and ethic. They are a concrete expression of the Buddha's teachings on the 4 Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path, the path of right understanding and true love, leading to healing, transformation, and happiness for ourselves and for the world. To practice the 5 mindfulness trainings is to cultivate the insight of interbeing, or right view, which can remove all discrimination, intolerance, anger, fear, and despair. If we live according to the 5 mindfulness trainings, we are already on the path of a bodhisattva, an enlightened being. Knowing we are on that path, we are not lost in confusion about our life in the present or in fears about the future." So as we go about this reading, I'd just like to say that the 5 mindfulness trainings are the basis for a happy life. They have the capacity to protect us and protect life to make it beautiful and worth living. They are also the door that opens to enlightenment and liberation. So as we read, please listen to each mindfulness training and answer yes silently every time you see that you have made an effort to observe, study, and practice the training that was read. I'm going to invite a half sound of the bell, and then we'll have Deborah read the first training.
The first mindfulness training, reverence for life. Aware of the suffering caused by the destruction of life, I am committed to cultivating the insight of interbeing and compassion and learning ways to protect the lives of people, animals, plants, and minerals. I am determined not to kill, not to let others kill, and not to support any act of killing in the world, in my thinking, or in my way of life. Seeing that harmful actions arise from anger, fear, greed, and intolerance, which in turn come from dualistic and discriminative thinking, I will cultivate openness, non-discrimination, and non-attachment to views in order to transform violence, fanaticism, and dogmatism in myself and in the world.
This is the first of the 5 mindfulness trainings. Have you had an opportunity to observe, study, and practice this training in the last few weeks? Please enjoy your breathing as you reflect. Janaki? Janaki, are you with us? Do you have your microphone muted?
Yes, I'm sorry. The second mindfulness training, true happiness, aware of the suffering caused by exploitation, social injustice, stealing, and oppression. I am committed to practicing generosity in my thinking, speaking, and acting. I am determined not to steal and not to possess anything that should belong to others. And I will share my time, energy, and material resources with those who are in need. I will practice looking deeply to see that the happiness and suffering of others are not separate from my own happiness and suffering. That the true happiness is not possible without understanding and compassion. And that running after wealth, fame, power, and sensual pleasures can bring much suffering and despair. I am aware that happiness depends on my mental attitude and not on external conditions, and that I can live happily in the present moment simply by remembering that I already have more than enough conditions to be happy. I am committed to practicing right livelihood so that I can help reduce the suffering of living beings on Earth and reverse the process of global warming.
This is the second of the 5 mindfulness trainings, True Happiness. Have you had an opportunity to observe, study, and practice this training in the last few weeks?
The third mindfulness training, true love. Aware of the suffering caused by sexual misconduct, I am committed to cultivating responsibility and learning ways to protect the safety and integrity of individuals, couples, families, and society. Knowing that sexual desire is not love and that sexual activity motivated by craving always harms myself as well as others, I am determined not to engage in sexual relations without true love and a deep long-term commitment made known to my family and friends. I will do everything in my power to protect children from sexual abuse and to prevent couples and families from being broken by sexual misconduct. Seeing that the body and mind are one, I am committed to learning appropriate ways to take care of my sexual energy and cultivating loving kindness, compassion, joy, and inclusiveness, which are the 4 basic elements of true love, for my greater happiness and the greater happiness of others. Practicing true love, we know that we will continue beautifully into the future.
This is the third of the 5 mindfulness trainings, True Love. Have you had an opportunity to observe, study, and practice this training in the last few weeks? Please enjoy your breathing as you listen to the sound of the bell.
The fourth mindfulness training, loving speech and deep listening. Aware of the suffering caused by unmindful speech and the inability to listen to others, I am committed to cultivating loving speech and compassionate listening in order to relieve suffering and to promote reconciliation and peace in myself and among other people, ethnic and religious groups, and nations. Knowing that words can create happiness or suffering, I am committed to speaking truthfully using words that inspire confidence, joy, and hope. When anger is manifesting in me, I am determined not to speak. I will practice mindful breathing and walking in order to recognize and to look deeply into my anger. I know that the roots of anger can be found in my wrong perceptions and lack of understanding of the suffering in myself and in other people. I will speak and listen in a way that can help myself and the other person to transform suffering and see the way out of difficult situations. I am determined not to spread news that I do not know to be certain and not to utter words that can cause division or discord. I will practice right diligence to nourish my capacity for understanding, love, joy, and inclusiveness, and gradually transform anger, violence, and fear that lie deep in my consciousness.
This is the fourth of the 5 mindfulness trainings, loving speech and deep listening. Have you had an opportunity to observe, study, and practice this training in the last few weeks?
The fifth mindfulness training, nourishment and healing. Aware of the suffering caused by unmindful consumption, I am committed to cultivating good health, both physical and mental, for myself, my family, and my society by practicing mindful eating, drinking, and consuming. I will practice looking deeply into how I consume the 4 kinds of nutriments, namely edible foods, sense impressions, volition, and consciousness. I am determined not to gamble or to use alcohol, drugs, or any other products which contain toxins, such as certain websites, electronic games, TV programs, films, magazines, books, and conversations. I will practice coming back to the present moment to be in touch with the refreshing, healing, and nourishing elements in me and around me, not letting regrets and sorrow drag me back into the past, nor letting anxieties, fear, or craving pull me out of the present moment. I am determined not to try to cover up loneliness, anxiety, or other suffering by losing myself in consumption. I will contemplate interbeing and consume in a way that preserves peace, joy, and well-being in my body and consciousness, and in the collective body and consciousness of my family, my society, and the earth.
This is the 5th of the 5 mindfulness trainings, Nourishment and Healing. Have you had an opportunity to observe, study, and practice this training in the last few weeks? Brothers and sisters, we have recited the 5 mindfulness trainings, the foundation of happiness for the individual, the family, and society. We should recite them regularly so that our study and practice of the mindfulness trainings can deepen day by day. Thank you, friends, and a special thank you to all of those who helped with the recitation this evening. I am very happy that we have some time this evening to share what is in our hearts. Our Dharma sharing period is a time when we don't necessarily have conversations or decide anything about the world's problems, but instead it's a time when we look deeply and say what is real and true for us in this moment. We might want to offer an insight that we've had. We might want to offer a question, but we're not offering the question to get an answer. We're more or less knowing that the answer in itself contains the question. I'm sorry, the question contains the answer. So it's not anything that anybody needs to solve for us. But sometimes the voicing of a question can express something that's in several people's hearts. And when we would like to share something, what we do is we bow in, we unmute our microphone, and then we have the opportunity to share for as long as we need to share, being mindful that there are other people who might also want to share. And then when we're feeling complete, we bow again, and we can turn off our microphones again. And this is a practice not only of loving speech, but of deep listening. So as somebody is sharing, the gift that we give is our full awareness and our full attention to what it is that they're saying. And this alone will have a healing effect. Just to know that they are being heard, that we are each heard by our community. So tonight, in terms of our sharing, I'd like to invite you to perhaps reflect on the 5 mindfulness trainings and how they're resonating with you tonight. Each time we read them, there's different things that arise, different things that we hear. So perhaps there's something new that you've heard, or perhaps there's something that is a favorite part that again feels nourishing to you that you'd like to share. Or we can also this evening talk about what is in our hearts on the causes and conditions of the world right now. There's a lot of transformation happening. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of inspiration. And we can be vocal about what it is that we're feeling, and maybe we can share details about things that we've been called to do, actions that we wanted to take or would like to take, and that there might even be possibilities to invite others into action with you. But this isn't a time to rally the troops. This is just a time to share and invite. So I will go ahead and bow out for now, and I open the floor to the community. And as I do that, I'm going to stop the recording so that everything that we say here as a community is held in confidence.